What's up everyone, it's Sprometheus, and today we're diving back into the wild world of espresso distribution tools. Yes, I know, that old chestnut. But it seems like the third wave seems to spawn out these distribution tools at a pretty regular clip every few months, with renewed claims of better consistency and generally better espresso. Having done multiple videos in the realm of distribution tools, I know that there's a solid contingent of people out there who are pretty skeptical of them to begin with, plus they see them as overpriced, overrated, or just generally not that useful. And to be honest, I was starting to feel just a little bit bothered at how similar they all started to look. Every company was coming out with one, and there was very little difference from one to the other. Generally, it was more aesthetic than anything else. But this one that we're looking at today is quite a bit different than the average distribution tool, or at least the ones that we see just in general. This is the Welhome Pro ESPCUP. In terms of the distribution tools we're used to seeing on the market, this one looks quite a bit different. Instead of a single base with an internal edge that grooms your grounds into a perfectly smooth bed, begging for a nice hard tamping, the ESPCUP comes in two cylindrical pieces. The first has an S-shaped wedge down at the bottom, and this sits on top of the second piece that has a small screen. These two parts are separate so the top portion can spin freely, and the wedge will drive the grounds through the screen, essentially removing any clumps. The base of the ESPCUP comes equipped with magnets, which keeps it pretty well fastened to your portafilter. Unfortunately, after about a month or so of use, a couple of the magnets started to come out or just came out completely. But it's a nice addition because it makes single-handed spinning easier, so you don't have to hold the bottom still while you spin the top. But don't let the looks of the ESPCUP fool you. Even with its intimidating size, the lightweight metal construction means it weighs roughly 100 grams less than my old reliable OCD version 3 that I lovingly call the hockey puck. Just like many of the distribution tools that are out on the market, it's a very simple mechanism and it actually resembles a flour sifter. Once affixed to the top of your portafilter, drop the grinds in through the top, and then spin the upper portion of the unit. The inner S-shaped agitator will then sift your grinds through the screen. But the actual agitator isn't quite as efficient as I would like at getting some of those stubborn grinds that are left over and stuck in the screen through the screen and into the basket. But after having it on my bar for a couple months, I've had some time to play around with it, and I came up with a couple ways to somewhat fix this issue. First up, you can brush it, which is the most effective, but it also is very disruptive to the overall flow of your espresso preparation. Or you can give it a few solid taps on your counter. This is what I opt to do for this tool to maintain not only a smooth order of operations, but it also serves a secondary purpose. Without those taps to settle the grinds into your portafilter basket, you'll find yourself in a rather precarious position. And if you think maybe this little bit of coffee stuck in the screen isn't really worth the fuss, it actually turns into a pretty significant amount of grinds when you take the time to fully flush it out. Even still, you won't be able to get all those grounds out of some of the smaller nooks and crannies without fully taking the unit apart and using some accurate brush work. In comparison, it makes the small amount of coffee stuck to my OCD tool from static seem like not that big of an issue. But now that you've gone through all that effort to get the coffee sifted and settled in your basket, your work is still not over, because there will still be a slight divot in the center of your coffee grounds. Tamping at this point will create a flat bed, but it will also be hiding some uneven densities throughout your puck. The higher level of grounds at the sides will be more compact than the center, creating an uneven flow of water through the puck. And trying to remedy this issue by using an OCD or other distribution tool at this point would still apply too much pressure and cause the same issues as tamping. So to handle this issue and get your shot ready to pull, you'll need to do some accurate tapping on the side of your portafilter to center some grounds for an even tamping bed. Personally, I find the workflow of a tool almost as important as the actual benefit it was designed for, and this becomes even more important in a cafe setting. So I figured the best way to measure and actually compare the workflows of these two tools, the ESPCUP and the OCD, would be to actually run them side by side and see how long it takes to use the tool and to begin pulling your shot. As you can see in the side-by-side workflow comparison, the OCD tool is substantially faster start to finish. Plus, it requires far less barista interaction with the grounds, which means more consistency shot to shot. Unlike many but not all of the popular distribution tools on the market, the ESPCUP actively creates very uniform grind texture by breaking up clumps as well as removing those large flaky pieces. This creates a very evenly permeable puck with much less chance of channeling. I will say, out of most of the distribution tools I've tried at this point in my career, which is, I feel like, quite a few, I think I was most impressed with the ESPCUP's ability to do back-to-back-to-back beautifully clean and even extractions from the bottomless perspective. The visual difference between the ESPCUP and the OCD bottomless extractions was definitely noticeable. And in terms of taste, there was also a noticeable difference. The ESPCUP created a milder shot in terms of the acidity, with what I would call a close to ideal balance. The OCD shots were much sweeter up front, but carried a lingering bitterness on the finish. And since I knew y'all would ask, I did test some extractions to see what the percentage was between the two. They were actually very close overall, with the ESPCUP slightly beating out the OCD by just shy of 0.25% on the average of the 5 tests performed per tool. You know, I find myself just a little bit torn on this one. I respect Welhome Pro or WPM as a company. I use their products on an almost daily basis. Their steaming pitchers have been my standby for years now. But in terms of this ESPCUP distribution tool, I think it only does about half the job, and calling it a distribution tool at all is just a little bit misleading. The fact that it filters out clumps and flakes that can cause channeling and other extraction issues is a great feature. But when I, and most likely you, think of a distribution tool, we think of a finished product that is a nice, even, flat bed of coffee. But the ESPCUP doesn't deliver that, even at its best. Yes, a relatively skilled barista can handle this issue and still get what I would consider extremely consistent results, not only in terms of extraction flow, but also in percentage. So considering all of the issues I presented with this tool and its $140 price tag, I can't really say I recommend it. It needs some work, it needs some fine tuning, and word on the street is they're working on a version 2, so I'll be curious to try that one out when it becomes available. And with that said, I think it's time to wrap this one up, but I also want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on distribution tools? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Also, if you own or have used the ESPCUP, I would love to hear your thoughts. I want to know what other users' experiences have been with this tool. Lastly, if there's any other distribution tools out there I should be looking into, let me know about those as well. Drop the answers to those in the comments down below, along with any other coffee questions you might have. And as always, I'll see y'all next week. A big thank you to my October Patreons, Ads, James B, Jacob P, David, Christopher, John K, Squeegee, Roe, Brian, Lisa, Obo, Andre, Rick Racer, Sean, Noel, Spookus, Bound Coffee, Mika, Samantha, Nathan, Claire, Steven, James K, Josh, Andrew Horrison, Bobby, Corey C. Curry, Jeff Roth, Ninja Warrior Coffee, Testing 1, 2, 3, Jason, Dave, Jerry, RD, Tim, Matt, Tony, Zachary V, Tyler, UK Espresso, Robert Underdunk, Jeffrey, Oliver, Thomas, Daniel, Mike, James, Brian, Brandon, and Tyler, and of course a big thank you to the Barista and Barback tiers. If you want any information on my Patreon, there's a link in the description and in the upper right hand corner right now. Also, a big thanks to you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications of new videos posted every Friday. Follow my Instagram at Sprometheus, my blog at Sprometheus.com, my coffee at littlegiant.coffee, and as always, stay caffeinated. Ponyboy.